So after we have gone through a lot of technical details in the class, I'm going to give you a general view here using a mind map. So about Model 22, Hong Kong government and I. So the first question, everyone knows that HKSAR is the government of Hong Kong, but we seldom question why he or she is able to rule Hong Kong. So we're questioning about the source of power. So the source of power is actually come from basic law, and generally speaking, there are 160 articles. There are guidelines and actually law that has given a basic structure that how Hong Kong should be ruled. So asking this question one step further, so how or why is this power given? So everyone knows that it is China, but to be concrete, it's actually the power is delegated by the National People Congress. And probably people will ask, what means National People Congress? Probably in the media we have seen this, and the total number of seats is around like 3,000, and the venue is the Great Hall of the People, and this is what we named in the news in Chinese 就係嗰個全國人民代表大會. So back to here, the basic law, there are two important principles that I really want to share to you. The first one is the saying, the Hong Kong people ruling Hong Kong. So it is stated clearly in the Article 3 that the people who rule the Hong Kong, I mean the chief executive, it must be the Hong Kong resident. The other article is the high degree of autonomy. Again, it is not just a slogan, but also included in Article 2. And so, more information, this is what we learned before. The three branches of power, executive, judicial, legislative power, is a revision. So it is, again, clearly stated word by word inside the Article 2. So this is an introduction about the basic law, and this is the important constitutional document that why Hong Kong SAR, this government, can rule Hong Kong. So after questioning this, 1.2, we will ask how can Hong Kong rule, I mean the HKSAR can rule Hong Kong, and I'm going to go through the decision-making process with you captured inside the textbook. So the first step, basically, the government encountered a problem that they have to solve, and then the government tried to draft initial plans. So this is really important. They really need to consult the public. So every decision-making process, they have to consult the public and ask for opinion. So then this initial plans turns into a detailed plan after public opinion. Then it moves to the Executive Council. It becomes a proposal. So now, if the proposal, the legislation is needed, the proposal would turn into a bill, and it must be passed over to the Legislative Council. So in abbreviation, this is LECO. And the Legislative Council, there are two processes. The first one, it have to be undergone by one debate, and then the vote, and afterward the decision of the Legislative Council is done, and a bill will become a law if it is passed. So what I have mapped here is actually how the things change. The first one, the solution turns into initial plans, become a detailed plan, it moves in proposal, and finally become a bill in front of the Legislative Council, and then after the debates and votes, it becomes a law. But how about when the legislation is not needed? So probably a lot of students ask, hey, so how a legislation is not needed? So I'm going to give you two examples. The first one, everyone knows who he is, right? So the HKTV is now successfully turned into a general TV channel that we have, but this does not need to be gone through in the legislative process, because it is done by the executive branch, by the government. So one thing I would really like to state is that actually it has been gone through a consultation process, but not a lot of people know that time. The other one is latest news about the Hong Kong Palace Museum. So again, this is not required because legislation is not needed. So these two examples state that some of the policy or some decision-making process does not really need to go through by the Legislative Council. So afterwards, the department, according to the plan here, will be execute the policies and laws. So this is something we have about the Hong Kong government. So we'll finish the introduction about the Hong Kong government. And so about I. How about I? For I, the relationship between I and the government is election. So we, in the civilized, a democratic society, we have elections. So there are 3 organizations that we can elect. The first one is the chief executive. So recently it has been gone through, and everyone knows that the coming chief executive will be Carrie Lam, right? The other one is the legislative council. And the third one is the district council. It means the councillor in each of the district in Hong Kong, separated in a lot of small parts. So I'm not going to cover a lot of details because there are some related video that I have recorded before for you. But I do want to state some details here, which is really important. So the first one, according to the basic law again, chief executive has to be elected. So elected, and finally we will like to achieve the final goal, which is the universal suffrage. 中文呢就係普選. So right now we do not have, but this is the final goal, which is stated clearly in the articles of the basic law. Yet there is a second point. Even though it is elected, it must be appointed by the central government. So basically China. So these 2 points is clearly stated in basic law, not able to be changed. Okay. Finally, I would like to remind you that there are actually reform and happened in 2012. So still remember the number of the election committee of the chief executive change in 2007 to 2012, and also this change from the seats of 60 to 70 in the reform in 2012. So a short reminder, there are 2 reforms happened in 2012, one for chief executive and one for legislative council. So I do not cover every tiny details in this mind map, but I do want you to have a macro view. In the study of Model 22, we have studied something about the government and also our relationship between we and our government. So that is the election. So why and how does the government does, and our rights in the election are covered in this mind map.